Wedding videos are some of the most challenging, but yet most rewarding videos that you can create. They're high pressure because you only really have one chance to get them right, but they're high reward because these are some of the most memorable videos in someone's life. I do want to preface this video by saying I am by no means an expert. I'm just showing how I make my videos. I've gotten some questions on how I do, so here you go.
One of my favorite authors, George MacDonald, he felt that in the entirety of the universe, there would probably be only one person in eternity who was perfectly matched to you. And your chances of meeting her or him, pretty slim, right? You know, just a perfect person, and I think has beat the odds.
I like to call this style the indie documentary style. Essentially, this video is carefully planned out and very methodical, but I want it to feel like your friend is just following you along with a camcorder all day. Let's dive right in and break down exactly how I prepped for, shot, and edited my most recent wedding film, Beat the Odds. When you prepare to shoot a wedding, you have to make sure that you prepare yourself appropriately for whatever style of video that you're gonna make. For this quote-unquote indie documentary style that I'm doing, I really want to shoot handheld most of the time. I'll have a couple shots on a tripod, but for the most part, it's gonna be handheld because I want to keep that authentic indie vibe. However, if you want a more sleek, elegant, and luxurious type of video, you'd want to use a gimbal. And if that's the style of video you're looking to create, this probably is not going to be the most beneficial video for you. As far as cameras go, it's always important to have a backup. Personally, I use the Sony a7 IV and my backup is a Sony a7 III. It's important to have a backup because if God forbid something happens to your main camera, it's going to suck a whole lot less if you've got a backup camera that you can use for the rest of the day. Besides that, the lenses that I brought to this video specifically was my 35mm, my 85mm, and most importantly my 24-70. I also brought a 16-24, but I didn't end up using it. The majority of the footage I capture in this style is on my 24-70, and I picked a zoom lens as my main lens just because I want to be able to do that little zoom in effect that really adds to the nostalgic vibe of the whole video. Another super critical part to shooting this style of video is making sure that you have the right audio equipment. So first of all, I shoot with a Rode mic on top of my camera, and I also bring some lavalier mics so that I can hook them up to the bride and groom, do some interviews and other things like that we'll talk about later. A lot of wedding videos out there are very slow motion and aesthetic and nice, and they've got some cool piano music in the background, and those videos are awesome. But it's not exactly the vibe we're going for in this one. I want to bring more emotion into it, make it more personal, and bring the viewer in so that they can share those emotions with the couple as the video progresses. Another piece of equipment that's going to add a lot of value to your videos is a drone. This is great for establishing shots, getting some scenery, and there's a bunch of other uses. Invest in a drone if you haven't already. Personally, I use the DJI Pro 4 Mini. I like it a lot. No complaints here, but it's also the only drone that I've ever owned, so take with that as you will. As far as lens filters go, I actually only used one, but I used it the entire time, and that's by PrismlensFX. It's their dream filter. I prefer to use the 1/8 stop because it's subtle enough that you can use it for the whole video and it's not overwhelming. But either way, having a filter like that is going to increase the dreamy vibe of the video, and that's really important to this style, so don't skip out on that. I put a link down below so you can grab those a little bit cheaper than normal. They also have some good ones on Amazon, but they're just not quite the same in quality. The final thing, and arguably the most important thing that I do to prepare for my wedding day other than bringing my camera, is creating a personal schedule. So your bride and groom are probably going to have their own schedule. Maybe the photographer helped them out with it. Make sure that you talk to your couple and the photographer so you can see what they're doing throughout the day, because if you don't know where they're at, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get the right footage. One trick that I really like to use is I'll take a screenshot of my schedule and make it my phone background so I don't have to worry about waiting for it to load or having to scroll around to find it or anything like that. It's just right there all day long. Other than that, make sure to stay hydrated throughout the day and eat something before, preferably something with a lot of carbs so you've got plenty of energy to stay on your A game throughout the day. Don't skip out on your health. Alright, so moving on to the shooting style. To shoot in this indie documentary style, there's a few key things that you've got to get right, and then everything else is simply gluing it all together. First up, we'll talk about interviews. Interviews are the single most defining element of this style. So what you're going to do is preferably before the first look, you'll take the bride and the groom separately, of course, and set up your tripod, get them mic'd up, and do an interview with them where you ask them a lot of questions about their relationship, how they're feeling, and all that kind of stuff. It's most important that you get the bride and the groom for those, but if time permits, you want to try to get as many people as you can, whether it be mom, dad, best man, maid of honor, or anybody else who plays a crucial part in that couple's life. These interviews are going to be super crucial to your video because not only are you going to have a beautiful looking video that's got a cool nostalgic vibe, but you've also got this direct conversation about the couple and about their relationship and their story, and that's something you just can't replicate. As someone who regularly films documentary style videos, asking good questions is just second nature to me. One of the best tips I can give is to just make sure you ask a lot of open-ended questions that are about the couple and not necessarily just about the day itself. The more you can get, the better. Here's a few of my favorite questions that you can ask the bride and groom so you can get a good idea of what kind of questions to be asking. Feel free to pause the video and write them down if you want. Besides the interviews, make sure you get a lot of establishing shots whenever you're going somewhere new and get a lot of B-roll wherever you are. I'm serious, you need a lot of B-roll to make this style work. Now let's talk about the big moments. Things like the first kiss, the first look, the cake cutting, the bouquet toss, and so on. There's two sides to everyone who shoots weddings, whether it be video or photo, and on one side, it's like, okay, we want to make a really good looking picture, a really good looking video, and on the other side, it's like, okay, the couple wants to actually enjoy their day and be able to live in the moment without it feeling like a big production. Personally, I'm on the latter side. I like being able to make sure they're having a good time throughout the day, that they're actually enjoying the day, that they're spending tons and tons of their hard-earned money on. So that being said, I don't like to overproduce these big moments because that honestly could ruin it for somebody. It's like if you're doing the first look and you make them sit there and wait and wait and wait, be like, okay, gotta get this picture, gotta get this video first, and this, and oh, okay, now you can finally do it. It's just gonna feel so overproduced, and honestly, it takes the magic out of the moment. So try your absolute best to just get it right the first time, make sure they don't have to wait or redo anything, and it's on you to be prepared to get that right. Unless the couple specifically tells me that they want to prioritize the video and like the look on the pictures and everything like that, I'm gonna let them have their moment. Have your special day. When they hire me, they should trust that they can have their moments and I'm gonna capture it. And if you don't feel confident in your abilities yet, either try second shooting or try doing some stuff like street photography until you do feel a little bit more comfortable. It's really important that you actually know what you're doing. You can't just BS your way into weddings. These are super important moments in people's lives and you don't want to mess it up. One thing that helps me out a lot too is I'll put my second camera on a tripod in any of the big moments and I'll mic up the groom. So whether it be the ceremony or the first look or whatever, I've always got a backup set of footage, and that way I'm not missing any of the important audio moments either. Like if they say something sweet or candid or it's a special moment and I'm sitting here recording the other clips, I know I've got at least one set of footage that has all the audio that I need, just in case anything else goes wrong or in case I miss anything. Outside of those main shots, your job throughout the day is to just document as much as possible. They call it a documentary for a reason. Oftentimes, I recommend people not overshooting, but when it comes to weddings, I honestly prefer overshooting because that's how you're going to have the most likely chance of getting any of the funny or candid or special moments that people aren't going to want to forget. Plus, you'll have a lot of extra footage you could deliver outside of your main video, and your client's going to appreciate that for sure. And last, make sure you're actually involving yourself in the day. Be present, talk to people, be in the moment. Don't just be that awkward fly on the wall that's pointing the big scary camera at everybody. Alright, now that you know how to shoot the video, we're going to talk about one of the most important steps, which is editing. The editing process is honestly very simple, and we're just going to break it down into a few easy steps. When you're working with documentary style videos, the interviews and the conversations and those candid moments are going to be everything. Those are the foundation of your entire video. Here's my formula to putting it together in a way that makes sense and is easy to follow. Try to think of the overall edit as different segments, and you're basically just piecing those segments together one after another to have a final polished video. Each of these segments is only going to consist of a few very simple steps. Let's start with the intro. First, I'm gonna look through all the interviews and I'm gonna find the one that's just delivered perfectly. It sounds really powerful, it's meaningful, it's thoughtful, and whatever that most powerful one is, I'm gonna put that right at the front. As soon as the video starts, that speech is starting. In the case of this video, I picked the best man speech because it was just really thoughtful, really well put together, and everybody loved it. Since these are live speeches, people are going to trip over their words, they might go off into tangents or, whatever normal talking errors that every human experiences. So it's okay to cut it up just a little bit. I try not to take out of any of the really important details, but if you need to cut up just a little bit for the sake of time, that's okay too. Once I've got the speech laid out, I'm going to move on to arguably the most important part of the video, which is picking out the music. The music selection process is absolutely what takes me the longest when I'm editing a video because I just want to make sure it's perfect. Your music selection will make or break your video. I'll tend to use different songs for the different segments because a lot of times the speeches have different energy, and you don't want your video to be all hype or all chill or whatever. You want to have a little bit of a mix of everything so it actually feels like a story and not just a compilation. One thing that's very, 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 very important is you have to pick music that you're legally allowed to use. You can't just go pick out a random Ed Sheeran song and slap it on there and call it a day. Unfortunately for us, there's music rights. You can't just steal somebody's music and use it in a video, even if you give them credit or say it's not your song or whatever. You can't do it. So I highly recommend checking out a website like artlist.io, Motion Array, MusicBed, or one of those other royalty-free sites. Those sites are going to grant you licenses for the music, so you're 100% allowed to use them. If you use a song that you're not allowed to, there's a chance it could get taken down. So say the couple posts the video on Facebook, Facebook could take it down because they don't have the rights to use the song, and that would really suck for them. And you don't want that, so just avoid using music you're not supposed to. One of the other ways that you can get music is if you get direct permission from the artist. Luckily, I'm also in the music industry, so sometimes I can pull those strings and make it work, but for most people, it's not going to work out like that. After you have your music and your speech together, all you have to do is fill it in with B-roll. Now, when you're picking out your B-roll, you don't necessarily have to have it completely in order of how the day went. Sometimes I'll add some moments from the ceremony in with some of the moments from the getting ready. Do whatever kind of feels right to you, but keep it a little bit sequential so it kind of makes sense as the video goes on. Sometimes at the very beginning, it's cool to have like a little compilation of everything, so it's almost like you're getting a sneak peek about what you're about to dive into. But this is the part where it really makes it yours, so try out some different stuff and see what feels right. And don't be afraid to ask other people for advice too. I've got a Discord server that I'll link below that's 100% free. You just join in and it's a community of a bunch of other videographers and photographers that can all get feedback on their stuff, or sometimes second shoot for each other, or just make some friends. Make sure that you've got a good balance of establishing shots at the beginning of a scene, different candid B-roll moments, and even some that have a little bit of audio in them. It's okay to stack the audio a little bit, kind of like this example.
It's the lady.
Because while that audio is not the main focus, it gives the viewer another thing that they can pay attention to at the same time. After you've done all those steps, you've got your speech, and then your music, and your B-roll, and whatever establishing shots. Then you're just going to go through and keep doing it for all the most important speeches or parts in your interview, and that's really it. I try to keep my wedding videos around 4 to 8 minutes just because I don't want you to have to sit there and make a commitment to watch the whole thing, but rather just be able to see it, remember all the nice parts, the highlights throughout the day, and it's all put together in a nice way. In addition to delivering that final video to the couple, I'm also going to create a timeline that just has all of the moments throughout the day, so they just have a big timeline compilation. You don't have to do anything extra or make it fancy or whatever. They just want to have that footage so they can remember those moments. They'll really appreciate it if you do that. So now you've got your whole video laid out and you're ready to color grade and add effects. This is the step where we transform your nice, simple, clean looking video into something beautiful, nostalgic, and tear-jerking to anybody that watches it. As we move on to the color grade and the effects, remember this is a wedding video, not some trendy YouTube video with a bunch of film flashes and transitions and text and stuff like that all over over the place. We're going for a timeless look, which oftentimes means simple. Personally, I don't shoot my weddings in log. I shoot it in the S Cinetone picture profile on my Sony a7 IV, and I think that looks great. I really love the way it looks overall, and it makes it easier when I send that whole timeline over to my clients. As I'm doing my color grade, I keep in mind 3 different looks. One is going to be the regular look, which is however we end up color grading it. The second is going to be anything that has a film overlay or anything you want to make look a little bit more nostalgic, which we'll get into in a minute. And then third, black and white shots. So while I'm editing, I'm going to pick out some of the most meaningful B-roll shots and I'm going to change them to black and white. Literally all I'm doing is turning the saturation from 50 all the way down to 100, and that's literally it. I'll also pick out some shots where I was actively using any kind of zoom in or anything that I want to look a little bit more nostalgic, and I'm going to add a film overlay on that. So this is an example of a shot where I really felt like it was deep and meaningful and it would look amazing with a film overlay. So this is the shot, and you can see it's a little bit shaky, whatever, because it's handheld, but that's how we want it to look. So this brings us to our most essential tool for editing, and that's going to be Dehancer. So with these shots, to get this look, I'm literally going to turn everything off except for the print, film grain, halation, bloom, and most importantly, the overscan. So the overscan is where we're going to get that film overlay to make it look nice and nostalgic. Literally all you do is click enabled and make sure it's on the Super 8 for this specific look, but they have a bunch of different styles that you can go to. I like to keep it pretty consistent throughout mine. Sometimes I'll switch them up just a little bit, but for the most part, they're staying the same. We don't have to change anything else in Dehancer right now because we're going to do a little bit more with it in the actual color grade. So once I've got all of these shots picked out, I've got my black and white ones, I've got my film looks, and I've got my regular shots. I'm going to take all the shots that aren't black and white and I'm going to put them in a group. Now what this is doing is allowing me to edit all of those at the same time because there's a specific look I want to go for the entire video. Before we edit the entire group, I'm just going to go through and make sure all of these shots are exposed properly. So I just want this look to be consistent throughout the whole thing, whether it's black and white or whatever else. Once we've done that, we can head over to the group post clip. And this is where first we're going to use a color space transform to change either if you're using log footage into Cineon film log, or if you're using Rec 709 footage also in a Cineon film log. If you shoot on Rec 709, literally all you have to do is click on the output gamut and change it to Cineon film log, and that's going to allow you to create a more filmic look with your video. This right here is going to be the most important part to making your video look more like film. It's important that you use an actual film emulation, not just some random LUT or whatever. A great example is Dehancer. I love Dehancer. I've been messing with it for the last couple months, and it's been an absolute game changer for me. So what I did with this is I just turned the source to Cineon film log, and then I basically have everything else disabled except for the film. So I use this Prokudin Gorsky 1906 film. I've definitely butchered the hell out of that, but that's the profile that I used, and I think it adds a really nice touch to these clips. So you could see without it, it's like that. With it, it's like that. Very nice. And I also have some film grain on there just to give everything like a nice, soft, nostalgic, again, look. And then finally, without this last step, it looks pretty contrasty, so I just added some more contrast in with a little S-curve that you can copy here if you like. But Dehancer makes it literally so easy to color grade this because there's not really too much else I have to do. Just make sure the temperatures are right across the board, make sure the exposure is right, and then you can slap this on there and call it a day. I'm also real quick going to head into the group pre-clip. And I'm going to go to the log wheel here and just a little bit I'm going to add to the shadows just to add some blues in there. Not very much at all. I'm going to turn the range just a little bit up. We can see before and after. Looks very nice. I'm even going to turn it down just a little bit using this. Maybe we'll turn it down just a smidge. Like that. That's really nice. It's very subtle, but it adds a beautiful look to your video. That's really it for the color grade though. Dehancer makes that so easy. After that, I'm going to go through and find some of the most important parts in the speeches and add some captions to them. So this is one moment where I used it right here. So you can see it's right in between two parts of the speech. I felt like it fit really nice there. but the captions elevated it that much more. Additionally, remember how we were talking about having some of those moments where there's a little bit of audio playing from the clip as well as the speech? Using captions, we can really make that stand out so it's not too distracting, but it's still in there and adds a nice touch.
It's the lady for me.
And the last step is just adding some sound effects in any moments that might need them. For example, this glass clinking here. It's really subtle, but adding that little extra layer of audio makes your videos really nice. And that's it. Once you've done all this, you're gonna have a beautiful, nostalgic, indie documentary style wedding film that your client is gonna treasure for the rest of their lives. I put a link in the description for Dehancer so you can get it and check it out for yourself, as well as the PrismlensFX filter that I use in almost all of my videos. Other than that, thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what the most helpful tip that I gave was, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe so I can keep making videos like this in the future. Until next time.